you a woman in medicine feeling overwhelmed and disconnected from the personal fulfillment that you desire? You're in the right place. Join Doctors Joanne and Aaron as they rewrite the rules for women in medicine. Let's begin.
Welcome to this episode of Create Meaning in Medicine. And in this episode, we have a unique topic that I cannot wait to delve into with my super co-host, Dr. Aaron Hurley. And we will be talking about competing interests. And you might be thinking, what do you even mean with competing interests? So I'll go straight to Aaron and have her explain what does that mean and why does it matter for us women in medicine. Maybe give us some examples about the things that you've seen, especially in the women in medicine you've coached.
I love this topic of competing interests because it is so relevant. And Joanne and I attended a training the day before this recording where our mentor and coach, Brenda Burchard, brought this up. And I was like, oh man, that is so powerful, specifically for the women we work with. Because if you think about your life and add up all of the roles that you may have your own children. You may have a partner or a spouse. You may have a leadership role at work. You may have a pivot to your where you're working. And you also may be part of the generation where you're dealing with aging parents or transitions in your family. And you think of the toll that all of those take in addition to doing your regular job at seeing your patients. Then give yourself credit because that's a lot of stuff to be managing. And it's hard to manage it all to the level that we want because, we all want to do all of those roles to our best capacity. And yet too many roles, too many competing interests will really subtract from the quality that we can do or make it impossible to do all the things for all of those roles.
Well, that's an amazing explanation. I usually have a hard time explaining this when I bring it up in my coaching, explaining this concept of competing interests. And how would we know that that's coming up? Like, what have you seen in some of your coaching clients or even in your own life?
Some of the clues that you might notice are, I've got no energy to deal with this right now. And it can be even a simple request and you just don't have the bandwidth. Or if by the end of the day or 3/4 through your day, you're out of energy, emotional energy, you've got decision fatigue, you get home from work and now you got to deal with your second shift as a spouse or a parent. And you're just like, I got nothing left. Or it just creates overwhelm, right? One more thing just tips you over the edge, or you're so overwhelmed, you're like, I can't even do one more thing. And the other is irritability. If you're just finding yourself irritable, frustrated, having some emotions that we might oftentimes label as, I'm doing air quotes, negative, ones that don't feel good, you may have an issue with too many competing interests. And if you haven't identified that, maybe that's something that I want to raise your awareness about today.
I love how you mentioned that we have so many roles because sometimes we forget. And I'm hearing you and then I can feel it in my heart, almost with compassion to myself of, yes, you do have a lot of roles. No wonder sometimes you have all of those emotions of feeling tired, overwhelmed. I cannot add anything else to my plate, and having the awareness. And then I like to also think of that the priority can vary depending on the time in our lives or even the time of the year. That I know that my kids play lacrosse. So the second semester, it's usually way busier in what I need to do with them compared to the first semester when they're more having home games or just practicing, and then understanding maybe what I want to do for work or in my time will compete with me wanting to be present with my kid in his practice, and to know that having the awareness of that distinction can make things a little bit easier, rather than me feeling like I just have to do it all the time. And I know that that's something that we've talked about when we share experiences in our own lives, or what we hear other people struggling with.
And I love that topic of the season. And you may have a season. I know I had too many competing interests when my kids were young. And I didn't yet recognize that this term, this may not be your season to take on this volunteer role. And you're already a leader in medicine, and you're dealing with aging parents, and you have 3 young kids at home, and you have a spouse and a marriage to take care of. And I didn't recognize that I should pay attention to the seasons of my life. And also, as you said, the seasons of the year. For us, it was my daughter participated in dance, and not just one dance class, but sometimes she was in 4 or 5 different dance classes. And so spring was when the spring dance recitals were, and she also participated in orchestra. So that was when the big orchestra performances were as well. And so as I started recognizing the patterns that would develop in the spring, and sometimes she was racing from one practice to another, or would have to, leave one early to get to the other because they oftentimes overlap the intensity. And then I recognized, was able to say to her, we're getting ready for your really busy season. And this is what I've recognized in the past. We start arguing more. You have no bandwidth because you're dealing with trying to get good grades, and dealing with orchestra, and dealing with dance. And I was actually able to help her recognize, oh yeah, I do see this. And so what can we do to give her more of a buffer to get through that really stressful season? And in medicine, we just oftentimes think, oh, we're just going to pick ourselves up by our bootstraps. But I oftentimes coach my clients, while you're going through this right now, you've got, an ill family member, and you've got lots of competing interests. Why don't you consider getting extra help around the house, either babysitting your kids, or help cleaning your house, or help with the landscaping? Take something off your plate. Use Instacart instead of going and spending 2 hours on your shopping every week. And so sometimes you don't need that extra support long term, but if you can pay attention and say, what's really going on? How many competing interests do I have? And yesterday during a session, I actually asked my client, I pointed out to her specifically about this competing interest topic. I said, these are the roles that I see that you have. And, an owner, a parent, a spouse, a supervisor, a volunteer, you have all of, dealing with, your immediate family, your extended family. And I'm sure there are more roles that I don't even know about. And I asked her, can you please make a list of all the roles you're serving right now? And then have some time with your family to talk about it and say, you know what, for now, I really need some extra help with these roles that I am doing, because maybe you're the best at it, but I need to not be doing those because I just can't manage right now. So sometimes it takes that pause and doing the exercise, and you go, oh, wow, I've got 15 roles right now. Too many competing interests. No wonder I'm not doing them all to the best of my capacity.
That's a great exercise. We should all do that. Sit down and write, what are all the roles I am taking part of in this time of my life? And how often we think that we're supposed to do them all to perfection without asking for help, without delegating. And I love what you said. Sit down with those around you and see, first of all, you asking yourself, am I the only one who needs to be taking care of this? Can I ask for help? Can someone else take over? Can someone else do even better than I can in these roles, and kind of alleviate a little bit of that burden that we often put in ourselves? And Erin, you mentioned a lot of good examples. Is there something that's maybe a distinction or something unique about this topic for the women in medicine?
Yes. one of the things is that if you don't know some of the statistics that are working against you as a woman physician, I've shared some of these before on the topics when I talk about getting more done with less time and energy. I've done a ton of research, and unfortunately, there aren't a lot of statistics working in your favor. One is that women physicians tend to spend 1.5 times longer in the electronic health record than men physicians. Women physicians tend to spend a few minutes longer in the exam room with their patients, which may not seem like a big deal, 2.5, 3.5 minutes, but you add that up, multiplied times how many patients you see in a day, in a week, in a year, and that's hours of your time. Even the divorce statistics, and I haven't looked these up in a while, but I know when I was sharing this during some of my workshops, the divorce rates, at least a few years ago, were showing that women physicians were about 1.5 times higher likelihood of getting a divorce than men physicians of the same age. And when you think of that impact, dividing up a household, dealing with, if you've got children, the financial impact of a divorce, and the years and sometimes decades of impact that can have, and how it is one more competing interests for you. Women take on more of the caregiving with their children, and they also have more of the roles around the household, even when they're a physician. The one positive that women physicians get is some of the research shows that we can get better outcomes for our patients because of how we practice medicine. And I always follow that up with the question, at what cost? And can I raise your awareness about all of those things that don't make it impossible to be successful, but you've got a steep mountain to climb, my friend. And so give yourself credit for all of those barriers. Pour into yourself so you can overcome some of those. Joanne talked about that in an episode about overcoming some of the obstacles that get in our way. And then figuring out ways that you can eliminate some of the competing interests or even delegate.
That is so powerful. Thank you. I'm like here in full attention. Like, oh my goodness. I usually take notes and I'm here just with my eyes wide open, even though I've heard you say the statistics before, because it's worth the reminder, because again, it's some of those external and internal expectations that we have, and then how we want to wear so many hats all at once. And of course, we'll have competing interests and then feel like we're not doing good enough, or that we're supposed to be doing more, or the comparison, the competition, the imposter syndrome, all those things come up. So thank you for the information. And hopefully the listener is hearing it with a lot of self-compassion and no judgment. Always self-compassion. This is for us to have more clarity, more awareness, so that we can see where we need help, where we can do better, where we need to talk to someone. So thank you for all that information. But talking about what we can do, what are some specific tools that we can get to that would help us deal with the competing interests and how we feel about them, knowing that it's kind of inevitable to have them, but how can we deal with it better?
And I'm going to take a page out of Joanne's book again. I'm getting better at creating my own framework. So here we go. We've got the 3 S's framework. The first framework, I've alluded to this a little bit, is 3 S's: set boundaries. And as I was saying before, where you might sit down and write down all of the roles that you play, and then you have a conversation, whether it's your team at work, whether it's with your family members, and you all make a list of what are all your roles, because they might have roles that you don't know about. And then if things are out of balance and you are carrying way more of those competing interests than others, not only delegate, but look and see which ones are you passionate about that you don't want to give up, and which are the ones that you're like, if I never in my life ever do this again, I will be so happy. And it might actually be somebody or something that someone else on your team doesn't mind doing. And so really looking at that and not keeping all the roles that you don't like, trying to match those better to your interests, because it makes it a little less cumbersome. So setting boundaries, when Joanne and I work with coaching clients, we often help them with frameworks about how can you influence someone. So from one of the coaching platforms, it's a 3-step process, acknowledging. Maybe I'll say to my spouse, honey, I know that this has been a really busy season. You've been working really hard, and yet it's tax season coming up. And, I'm the one that does all of the financial stuff and QuickBooks for our businesses. And so I'm going to need you to step it up and cook more dinners and help around the house more, And so then I'm acknowledging what he already does. I'm making it a win-win. If you want us to get our taxes done on time, then I'm going to need your help and support. So it's a win for our family and a win for me. And then I infuse it with the right emotion, which is getting excited. Let's get our taxes done on time. Let's still have the family run. So it's a 3-step process that I borrow from our coach, Brendan Burchard. I didn't make it up, but I use that all the time to influence my own circumstances and coach my clients on it as well. And it is so powerful yet simple. So you can use that 3-step framework in order to help set healthier boundaries and share those boundaries with the people around you. The second S is simplify what you are focusing on. As I was saying, if you've got a list of 20 competing interests, our brains really focus well on 3 things at a time, not 53 things at a time. And it may be that you need to look at your list and see, what do I not need to do this week, this month, this quarter, this year? Can I shift it to the future? Is there something I can drop off or delegate to another person or share the load with another person? You will find if you simplify your focus, and Joanne and I both use a planner system that really talks about that, limiting to the 3 things that you focus on. And it has been game changing for me and my clients that I coach on it, simplifying, trying to limit what you're focused on to 3 or less. And the last S is a big one. Single task, not multitask. And I was totally breaking that rule this morning as we were getting ready to record. And I'm talking to Joanne on the phone as we're planning. And I'm putting on my makeup, drinking my coffee, finishing my hair, and eating my breakfast all at the same time while having a conversation with Joanne. And I was like, okay, this is not good role modeling. And when we multitask, we're really just fastly toggling between one task and another and another and another, which I teach is really exhausting. So I did it intentionally, knowing it was a very limited period of time, maybe 15 or 20 minutes, but I do not recommend it, because if you single task and you just strategically get that one task done with all of your attention, boom, you get to knock it off your list of things to do and then intentionally move to the next. But if you're multitasking with 6 different things all at once, you're going to do a pretty lousy job on all of them. And as women physician perfectionists, high standards, we're probably not going to be very happy with our outcomes.
Hey, but I'll give you credit that you asked me for help. You said, Joanne, can you take notes for me while we're talking? We're reviewing the topics that we were going to talk about so that you can use my my brain as your external brain so that you could keep on doing the physical things. And I'll say something funny here. I've said it before. At some point, we're going to have to start recording how we get ready and show it as an example.
Yeah,
of different ways to deal with your team and the people that you love, and how you can complement each other with your skills and what you're strong. And it is funny that I'm like sitting still, writing things down, and Erin is moving back and forth. But you know what? It works. And then we had this beautiful moment of telling each other thank you, because we're aligned. We have our common mission to come here and share all the goodness, and we can be flexible, and that we're not here to activate each other's central nervous system, but rather calm, enjoy the process, and bring all the goodness to you. So kind of a little funny but sweet side note for you all. Thank you, Erin. I love you. I, like always, have so many notes, and I was paying a lot of attention. And thank you, because this is, again, it fills up my heart for us to talk about these topics, because we're programmed to just go, and have these expectations. And it's good to sit back and have someone else tell you, you know what, this is very appropriate. And of course, you're not going to feel great all the time. And it's a matter of figuring out all the roles that you're playing. And I love that the awareness of maybe some are outdated, maybe some don't bring you the same joy as they did before, and knowing that. And the clues, that was so important. Thank you for bringing that up, because we don't always pair these things together. And then we're tired, we're exhausted, we're in a bad mood, we get overwhelmed, we feel stuck, and then we just beat ourselves up and feel bad, which kind of makes the whole thing worse. So it's good to use the emotions sometimes as triggers to step back and ask what's going on. And I love a framework, so I'll summarize it. Set boundaries. And boundaries, like we shared with you before, are not meant to push things away. They are meant to protect what's important to you. So identify what's important to you. What are those roles that you want to keep? Simplify. Our brain goes 1, 2, 3, too many. So love what Erin said of focusing on the top 3 things for the day or for the week. And then single tasking, especially for the things that are mentally and emotionally draining. Maybe you can pair up going on a walk and having a conversation on the phone, or folding laundry and listening to a podcast. But we cannot just do too many things that are tasking for our brain, because we're not really efficient. So this was amazing. Erin, anything that I didn't ask you that you want our listener to know?
Something came to mind. I think in hindsight, it's a little bit funny. And so I'm going to poke fun at myself. So this past week, I came back from traveling across the country from this conference Joanne and I went to, and had a great time. But when I came back, my husband was sick. And so I, being the germaphobe doctor that I am, was like, okay, don't touch this. I'm not going to let you help with the food. I'm not, we need to Lysol everything. And then a couple of days after we got home, my son got sick with a different illness. And so I'm not only trying to catch up from getting home and, talking about competing interests. And then now I've got 2 sick family members, and all a very turbo-infused week, lots going on. And so I knew I had way too many competing interests, but I also knew this isn't going to last forever. I'm going to help my family recuperate. I'm going to turn on the turbo speed, do more multitasking, take on tasks around the house that I wanted to, because I didn't want to get sick or, to increase my risk of then falling ill. And so I had way too many competing interests, but I also knew that it's going to end. And so what did I need to do to fuel myself better? I was very careful about how late I went to sleep, and I went to bed one night at 8:45. I steamed, I exercised, I ate very healthy. I took all my immune supplements. And now that my husband is feeling better, this morning, he made the coffee. He made my breakfast. And so I went right back to going, okay, now I'm going to push some of those competing interests back to my spouse because it's appropriate, and get right back to that balance that I was at before as quickly as possible, because I knew I couldn't keep up that breakneck speed for much longer, and have my sanity and not be super grouchy, frustrated, or exhausted, which would have been the norm, the old me, before I knew better. So hopefully that's some inspiration for our listener to go, okay, how quickly can I get out of this?
Yeah, all the tools in practice. And like you were saying in one of the last episodes, being flexible and know when to pivot and know when to put one interest aside because something else became a little bit more urgent, and then shifting again. So wise. Thank you for the example. I am loving these topics that we've been bringing up in the last episodes. So if you haven't listened to the last episodes, go back. It's magic, a lot of important information to help you move forward. Let's make this the best year yet. And if you want more resources, please go to our website, createmeaninginmedicine.com. We are gathering up some more resources for you. We're building community, so please go there and see what's in store for you. And stay tuned. Our next episode is coming up.
Do you want exclusive resources and the opportunity to connect with us? Then visit createmeaninginmedicine.com now, where you'll dive deeper into how you can create meaning in medicine. And if you're serious about optimizing your results, take 2 quick steps now. Connect with us on the website and tune in to the next episode.